And good morning, everybody. It's Dan Latto speaking. Hope you're well today. It's a Monday, so I've changed up what I do on Mondays now. It used to be that I had loads of meetings. I've stopped that. It's just too much, frankly. I want to just roll into Monday like we've had a great weekend and we're going to have a great Monday, and it's just nice and easy, nice and relaxed. I've got the sound of the rain outside. I've got the dog. I've not got the fire on yet, but I just want a cozy Monday. Given the state of the world, why the heck not? Anyway, in today's podcast show, I want to talk to you about why you should learn to invest. And we've broken it down into 4 separate reasons, as you can see on your right, I guess. And this is really important. It's actually a post I put out earlier on today because I see people saying, if you've got savings in the bank and you're getting 0.1%, give your money to me and I'll invest it. And I'm like, don't do that. That's a really, really bad idea. And if you see the post, it's on my personal profile on Facebook. You'll kind of understand why. I've seen people who are gurus in the property industry take other people's money and they just go bust. One guy went for 4 million, another guy went for 4.5. There's another one going through right now for a lot more than that. A guy's been in property for 20 years. And it's like, what are you giving other people money for? Like, if you're going to do this, you need to put some protections in place. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. But the protections about you investing. We're not specifically talking about property. We're not talking specifically about Bitcoin or stocks and shares. We're just talking about general investing principles. And if you can develop general investing principles, you can invest in anything and get a decent return and reduce the risk. And really, when we talk about investing, we're talking about reducing the risk. Now, of course, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm not qualified to be giving you financial advice. So what this podcast is about what I would do if I'm an investor. I kind of hate the do your own research. If you don't know how to do your own research, and most people don't, that doesn't really help people. However, do your own research, right? So we have to say that for legal reasons. I'm not a financial advisor. So don't listen to a word I'm saying. All of this is bullshit. But this is just what I think, right? Okay, I think legally we've probably protected ourselves enough there. Okay, first up, responsibility ends with you. This is the thing, okay? If you're giving your money to someone else who's saying, oh, I'll get you this return and that return, and often these returns are too good to be true. It's a guaranteed 20% a year. It's a guaranteed 15%. Anything that's guaranteed isn't guaranteed. And I think that you need to have some awareness. And really that's what this podcast is about, I think. It's about raising awareness so that if you are going to invest in some of these opportunities, and I'm not saying that you don't necessarily invest. What I'm saying is that you learn how to invest. And you compare this investment with this investment. So is a property at 100 grand that brings in £6,000 a month, a year, is that better than a property at 150 grand that brings in 7,800 a year? Now the answer should be the first one is better, but it depends. The first one is a flat and the service charges are £200 a month. The second one is a house, no service charges. Now which one's better? How do you know? And so this is why you have to learn to invest, so that you actually understand what the difference between those two types of investment actually are. And a third type of investment where you put your money into a fund and it gives you approximately a 7% return. Is that better or is that worse? Is it leveraged? Is it not leveraged? And so ultimately, the responsibility for your success over the next 25 years ends with you. If you get this wrong today, you've affected your entire future timeline. So there's this saying, if you kill somebody, you've not just killed one person, you've killed a society, because that one person has 2 kids. Those 2 kids have 2 kids. Those 2 kids have 2 kids. Those 2 kids have 2 kids, and so on, right? You've killed 1 million people if you kill somebody, okay? And if it's the same, if you put £1,000 into something and you lose that money, which I've done, by the way, as I mentioned in my Facebook post, we've put £1,000 into someone, given our money to someone else in crowdfunding, and we lost the bloody thing, right? So it's like, what are you going to do to ensure that that money is invested responsibly, that you're going to get a return? Like, Benjamin Graham, whose student was Warren Buffett. Benjamin Graham, rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, reread rule number 1. Rule number 1, never, ever, ever lose money. If you lose money, if you lose £1,000, to get that £1,000 back with another £1,000, you've got to have a 200% return. Like, how's that going to work for you? So think about this. You put £1,000 into a bank account, you get, not a bank account, but into something that gives you 7 to 10% return every year over 20 years. Like, you're going to get a decent return. But if you lose that initial £1,000, you ain't ever getting a return. And to get that initial £1,000 back, you need a 200% return. So just be aware of that. And the responsibility ends with me. Look, I can give my money to somebody else, right? I'm still responsible. If they lose my money, I'm still responsible. And it's this... we never talk about this enough, about responsibility for humans. I lost my words there because it's so huge and mind-blowing for me that we never talk about responsibility, personal responsibility. I had a McDonald's, what do I call them, apple pie, and I burnt myself because it was hot inside. Well, duh. And there was actually a story of a woman who burnt herself with coffee. And sued McDonald's and won. And actually, the way that the media portrayed it was that she was really silly and so on. But she was in her 80s, she needed third-degree burns. She had third-degree burns, and there was all sorts of stuff going around about the quality of the cups and all of that kind of thing. Anyway, but the responsibility is yours, and we don't talk about taking responsibility. Personal responsibility, physical responsibility, and by that I mean general health as well, financial responsibility, responsibility for your housing, responsibility for your food. Like, gas prices are going up. Who's responsible for gas prices going up? Like, can I take responsibility for that? Not really. Can I take responsibility for not having solar power? Absolutely I can. Can I take responsibility for being in a situation where I've got a gas guzzling car? I can, and I did, and I sold the damn thing 2 months ago. I would like to say that we are so on the ball that we could see all this coming. We saw the Ukraine war coming 2 months ago. We didn't. It was just complete luck. But it was costing so much money to fuel that bloody car. It felt like I was entrapped. But is that our responsibility to decide what car we're going to drive? Is it our responsibility to decide how many flights we take and what the cost of that is going to be? Like, all things that happen to us is our responsibility. And that's not to say that we're to blame. They're two different words. And I want to clarify what responsibility and to blame means. If you're walking down a dark street and it's in a dodgy part of town and you get mugged, are you responsible for that? Like, not really. The mugger is responsible, okay? But are you semi-responsible because you shouldn't have been in that part of town walking down a dark street 3 o'clock in the morning? Yes. You have responsibility. But are you to blame? Not at all, right? And I want to get clarity on the difference between responsibility and to blame. Am I to blame for me losing that £1,000 4 years ago? No, not at all. I gave my money in good faith. Am I responsible for not making a better choice? Yes. And they're the two differences that we need to understand when it comes down to investing. So the responsibility, it just ends with you. Like, you need to take it on a chin. If you've messed up, hold your hand up. I messed up. And learn what did you do wrong. Because when you learn what you did wrong, you can then pass these lessons on down to the kids. And isn't this one of the most important aspects of this? You know, I was brought up in a very working class house. My dad was self-employed as a photographer. He would work 60, 70 hours every single week. He would photograph 5 weddings over the weekend, more. He would do 3 or 4 on Saturday and 2 or 3 on a Sunday. He would work all hours and he'd take Wednesdays off, something like that. But he would work so much time. Now, was that a lesson that I, as a 5-year-old, a 10-year-old, could see? Dad sitting on the floor doing his calculator and his VAT and doing all that. Like, is that something that I learned as a child? Is that a good lesson to pass on? Absolutely. I don't sit and do my VAT on my accounts late at night watching telly. Late at night watching telly, I'm late night watching telly with my family. That's what we do. I got someone else to do all that kind of thing. But are these the lessons that you are passing on, either consciously or unconsciously? Absolutely. So then, How about you make a decision? What are the lessons that you would like to pass on to your children? One of the lessons that we've got a 16-year-old and turns 17 next month. She actually lives in her own house now. And one of the lessons that we're teaching her is budgeting. And is she going to mess up her budget every so often? Of course she is. But has she seen her dad do his budget and talk about budgets and discuss budgets while we're driving around in cars? Absolutely. Is that consciously a lesson that I've passed on to my children? Absolutely. Right now we've got a 7-year-old and, she will sell some of her toys and then use that money to buy more of the toys. And she gets money for cleaning her room or making her bed and so on, washing the car. So she's putting effort, she gets a return, and then she decides where to put that money. And it's based around toys right now. She's 7, she doesn't need to be in business. But she's understanding money, and is that a conscious effort for us to teach responsibility about money down to the kids? Absolutely. I've had other lessons that you can teach your children about investing. Of course you can. Every time you give your kid an ice cream, eat 20%. Teach them about tax. And if you give them a lot of ice cream, take 40%. The more money you get, the more the government takes away. And then teach them, how do you get away with not having to pay so much tax? Maybe you buy the ice cream through a company. All right, maybe we're using the analogy a bit too far there. But you need to make a conscious decision about what the lessons are that you're teaching your children. Because right now, unconsciously, you are teaching your children something. You might not even know what it is yet. And you're probably screwing up your kids. Hell, I'm screwing up my kids. Hell, I was screwed up as a kid. Hell, we were all screwed up as kids, and we will all screw up our own kids. There's death, taxes, screwing up your kids, right? You can't even help it. Even though you think you're going to wrap them in cotton wool and you're going to do the very best that you possibly can for your kids, you're still going to mess it up. It's just part and parcel of it. And actually, kids have to learn this stuff. Wrapping up your kids in cotton wool, I'm kind of not, I don't lean towards that. I'm like, let's get them to learn the lessons. These lessons are hard. Let's get them to learn what they are. Let's get them to understand. You didn't study for that test? You failed? There you go then. That's a great lesson that you've learned. Instead of, come on, you need to study. Like, let them fail. Like, it's the hardest lesson, by the way. And I'm probably the last person that should be talking about giving your kids lessons. But from a financial point of view, from a budgeting point of view, from a responsibility point of view, you've got to consciously decide what are the lessons that you actually want to give your children. Because you are teaching your kids something, right? Unconsciously. You don't even know what you're teaching them. How about you change that and you make it something a little bit more conscious? And also, how about you change it into something that they can go, you know what? When you're dead and buried and the kids are in the 30s and 40s and 50s, you go, one lesson I learned from my dad was budgeting. And I've never gone bust. And I've never gone overdrawn because I've got a budget. And I know how much I can spend and I know how much I can't. Like, how about that as a lesson? That's a wonderful lesson. And how about, for every £100 I put into something, I get £6 back every year. So if I put £100 into an index fund, for example, that's two Starbucks coffees a year. So that's one every 6 months. And if you put £1,000 in, that's £60, assuming £3 for a Starbucks coffee. That's one coffee every month from £1,000. Like, you should be consciously thinking about that kind of thing. Now, if you're not doing it already for your kids, chances are you're also not doing it for yourself. And so one of the reasons why we go through this on the podcast, we talk about business growth and we talk about marketing and mindset and wealth creation and property cash flow and cryptocurrency and all that stuff, right? But this is about raising your conscious awareness of not only what you're teaching your children, but also what you're demonstrating to yourself. All of this is really, really important. Because one of the things I've learned is that through investing, it gives you a greater understanding of how life works. Let me give you an example. Right now, Dan boy right here cannot be arsed going to the gym. I cannot be bothered. And I've said this so many times. I've put weight on and, I ate so much shit last night. You won't believe. I loved it. I'm in heaven right now. I just can't be bothered. But one of the things I've learned is that small differences over a long period of time makes a big difference. I'll say it again. Small differences over a long period of time, I can't even say it right, over a long period of time make a big difference. As Tony Robbins would say, when you stood and you're about to hit the golf ball is so big, and 2 millimeters of the club hitting the golf ball If it's there, it's going to swing wide, okay? If it's there, it's a hole in one. If it's there, you've swung the other way. So this bit, over a long period of time, makes a big difference. So, for example, if you're eating 4 donuts a day, cut down to 3 donuts a day. If you're having half a litre of Coke, drop it down to 1 can of Coke. If you're having breakfast, 11s, lunch, mid-afternoon snack, dinner and supper, how about you cut that down to 3 meals a day? Or even 2 meals a day? 1 at 1, 1 at 8, whatever, right? Like those small differences over a longer period of time. If you're not doing 10,000 steps and you're only doing 3, find a way of getting 10,000 steps in there. If you're not lifting any weights at all in the week, lift once a week. Do an all-round body thing. Something is better than nothing. Because this is what you learn in life, is through investing, cutting down on coffee at Starbucks, we just use that as an example, and saving that £3 a week. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that's 150 quid, 156 pounds throughout the year. Is that something that you can put into something else that then generates more cash? Absolutely. Are these small, insignificant amounts? Absolutely. Is it going to make you a millionaire in the next 10 years? No. But what happens is that you started the journey and you started small. This is one of the mistakes that people make. They go, well, when I get some money, then I'll begin to invest. And it's like, you don't have any money right now? Like, what are you spending? Have you bought clothes recently? Have you bought coffee and food recently? Like, can you cut back on that? Can you change the things that you do? Can you cycle to work? There are all these different ways of cutting your costs. And that money that you're saving can then go into something else. And that's what really this is about. Investing will give you a greater understanding of how life works. If you're not consciously aware of what you're doing with your money, you're unconsciously doing something with it, right? You're either consciously aware or you're unconsciously not aware. And you need to be more consciously aware, because this will give you a greater understanding of how life works. And then finally on this is going to give you a really good learning experience. Like, you can put some money into something. Like, that £1,000 I put into crowdfunding. Was that a waste of money, or was that a really good lesson? I think it was a really good lesson. Could I have got that lesson without losing so much money? Probably. But would the lesson have hurt as much? Would it have solidified inside the way that I think about things as much? Probably not. Just be honest, you go out and lose 10 grand, you ain't ever losing 10 grand like that again. You lose £1,000, you're not losing money like that again. You lose a fiver on the horses, you'll be back next week putting another fiver on, right? Because it's not big enough to make it painful. So these learning experiences, these negative emotional experiences that we have, that we regret later on in life, are actually something to be celebrated, because without these negative emotional learning experiences, you can't then make better behavioural choices as you move forward into the future. Look, that's it for me today. Hope that's useful. We actually went for 20 minutes there. It felt like a 5-minute podcast. But we're rammed again today, so nice short one. Anyway, look, I hope that's useful for you. Drop me a message, let me know, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next podcast. My name's Dan Latta. Have a great week, and we'll speak to you soon. Take care.